computer. I don't have any of that like waiting for and protecting ourselves from the internet right away. It's all live now.
It's just instant. Okay.
It's instantly on. Of course, I don't think anybody's watching us because I just started the stream.
Okay, we'll get people watching.
I tweeted out.
Do you have the...
I have chat right there. And this streaming works. It'll eventually realize that we're streaming and not be a dash for zeros and dash for duration.
I'm new to this stuff.
Yeah. But, of course, we're also recording this for YouTube so people can watch it after the fact.
Cool. Yeah. So what is our topic today?
So for those of you who don't know us, we'll do some quick introductions. I'm Brooks. I also have this channel, Brooks Builds, Brooks Zerker, depending upon if you're watching us on Twitch or YouTube. And I'm a software developer. It's really interesting because I've been considered a senior software developer by some places, and I've been considered a mid-level software developer, sort of like in my current phase of things. Also in the past, I've been a systems administrator, I've been a teacher, an educator, and many, many other things. And I know the importance of reaching out and working with mentors. So that's why I work with this guy right here. So.
Hi, I'm Dan Levy. I am currently a teacher at Galvanize. I used to work with this guy here, and I've done lots of things. I've been a senior engineer, an entrepreneur, a open source guy. Yeah, I've recently worked on React Router, Gatsby.js in a very small part, but yeah, I'll probably use my work in some measure.
Did you mention you were on the Node core team?
Not the core team. It's a very small.
The outer core.
The
shell.
It's like 400 or 500 people. Yeah, I'm in
the surface.
I'm in that larger.
You've been pulled in by the gravitational force.
Yeah. The core Node team's like 40 people.
Yeah. Know people. All right. So the biggest thing that I want to talk about, because I want to start this as an ongoing thing, where on Thursdays, where we can meet up when we don't have other things going on. So it probably won't be every single week on Thursday, but a bunch of weeks on Thursday I'd like to, after work, just hang out and then talk about mentorship type things. And because I don't see enough of these online, that's why we're streaming them and recording them, because I think this is important for people to realize that nobody can just do this on their own. Like, we need each other.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's a complete myth that this is a lone wolf industry, or you can be, I had a student say the other day that, no, I want to be like a developer. I don't like people. That's why I want to be a developer. I'm going to be like Mr. Robot. And I was like, wait, what? Mr. Robot has a team. What are you talking about? Like, even the hackers have teams. Like, come on. This is a group activity. And being better at this craft is completely a shared effort, and you accelerate by working with other people.
So what I want to get out of any mentorship type thing that I get in is, like, it's a combination of I can be vulnerable and you can help out with that. There's sometimes it'll be technical, where I have actual technical questions and you can help me with those. But a lot of times it's going to be sort of like talking through any problems that I have in my mind, and then getting help in that way. But I also hope that there can be a benefit that I can provide to you. So my first question is, what benefit can I give to you by being your mentee?
So helping, just sharing the knowledge that I have. There's a funny thing. People assume that the knowledge that they have is not going to go away, or it's stable and will remain forever available. That's not true. I used to be pretty handy with DNS, but I got into some crazy IPv6 stuff the other day, and turns out I can't remember anything. So that was kind of a reminder that you need to keep applying yourself. You need to keep working at what matters to you, and that is how it stays something that grows with you. If you're not working at it, if you're not focusing and on something, it will atrophy. And so being a mentor and a mentee is a way to have a give and take relationship that just creates a self-propelling vehicle for that growth. And Danny, what's up?
Danny's hosting us. Yeah, I think he auto hosts us, so
okay.
he may not actually be watching us.
Oh, Danny, you break my
I don't actually have the viewer list, so I can't. I don't know.
Danny's a former colleague of ours.
Also, if you have any questions, feel free to ask when we do these live. And if you don't have these live, you can tweet questions at us, and we can talk about them potentially during our other mentorship meetings. So, what with like mentorship type stuff, I also have some other mentors that I try to meet with, but I haven't really gotten into a good groove of meeting with them regularly. One of my favorite mentors that I have is a business mentor, Kyle. He is super, super, super good at like leadership and business, and has gotten me really, really into that.
Mm-hmm.
And
don't forget culture, economics, a couple other things.
Oh well, yeah, he does it all.
Yeah. Kyle was our former fearless leader, and we miss him dearly. Just in case you watch.
Yeah, he's not going to watch.
No.
He's too busy for that. And one thing that I've been struggling a lot with, and maybe you can help out with this, is as a developer, just going through my day, we have like all the tickets we need to do. We have all of like so there's normal tickets. There is fixing any kind of a technical debt that we've accidentally put in there. There are just working within the team and keeping that political structure going, breaking out of that bubble, and doing like the walkthroughs. How do you find time to do that?
It's extremely difficult. The gravity of a job kind of suck you in, and it is like one of the most important things: learning to say no when you get asked to go and do over and above what you need to at work. Because oftentimes, people are just trying to see if you're willing to jump on something when there's other people they could go to. There's a lot of social pressure there that's imagined or real, but still both. And it hits me too. Like I will overcommit and find myself not tending to the things I want to work on. And it's, I catch myself in that and have to kind of push back, find a healthy level of work. But I don't know if there is an easy silver bullet. But an easy measure of if you're not doing it right is, are you doing other things than work? Are you spending, can you say you spend an hour or 3 hours a week on non-work? Technical growth?
Yeah,
it's a lot of thinking. Pausing for that.
It is. I end up spending a lot of my growing time outside of work, like at home.
But I think it's important also to have a structure and have goals and targets for what you want out of a mentorship relationship. It's not opportunistic, and I used to feel that way when I was younger. I used to feel like I want to meet with this business executive. It really is trying to give me some pointers, but I really I just feel like I'm doing it for my own financial gain, and I just felt bad about it. But that was silliness. Generally people were more than happy to help me, and that it was weird getting over that. And and it was almost a procrastination thing, keeping me I'd regress into my work. And at that time, I was running my own company, but I'd almost hide behind it and avoid actual growth. I would focus on busy work that wasn't. I'd lost my goals. I wasn't focused on actual achievable outcomes. And, it went on for a lot longer than I'd like to admit, but it was after a while I was able to realize that, my output and my outcomes and my goal setting for my business, I wasn't matching on my growth side for personal goals. It's suddenly that to-do list vanished from my life. I stopped tending to it. And I think it's really important to focus on that and keep revisiting it on a regular cadence, like monthly or or whatever works. But just having that, and even if you have to throw away old goals, just tending to it, realizing and reconciling with yourself what's important is important, it matters, and it's worth spending the time on.
How did you start though? Because that's one of the things that I'm struggling with is I know how powerful it can be to like just get up out of my chair and then walk around the office and like meet other people in the company. Heck, more people in the company know who I am than I know them. And I haven't had a one-on-one with the CEO, even though she has an open door policy, and like she's even invited me to come talk to her. I haven't gone over to like the sales area except just to pass through to like go to meeting rooms.
You might hear what they're promising you to deliver.
Well, I mean, even if I hear anything good or bad, I think I know the benefits are that I can get to know people and I can then maybe get connections going, and that also like help people connect with each other. I know that there's so many benefits both to me and to the company for me to do that. I just have trouble with that first starting it. I even put it on my calendar and I just ignored it.
Well, I mean, is your goal to network? Is your goal to like immerse yourself in the company? Is it to find those organic opportunities that'll come up from those sorts of chance encounters? Because I mean, you've got enough people there; those will happen.
I guess I want to do it because I want to increase that skill. I know it's a skill to like to network in this way, and I'm used to networking in a more like a meetup environment or a one-on-one environment between people I already know, but not necessarily in the actual business environment. I guess it's a combination of feeling guilty about leaving work temporarily, like I'm leaving behind tickets, and I already feel pretty slow because of my like dyslexia and reading and writing code. I already feel a little bit slower than everybody else in writing the tickets. So I don't know. There's some part of it that feels there's a I don't know.
Forgive yourself. You're okay. You're everything you're doing is legitimate work, and the output of this is focusing on building those relationships. It's a slow buildup of you need to understand what people's needs are, what their relationships to each other, how does a sales team and like maybe inside and outside sales or whatever, how those dynamics work. The more time you invest figuring out how those roles in the company exist will let you achieve like personal growth in that networking skills, and will let you perhaps leverage outside like your abilities as an engineer. You're able to see what might look like a complex, expensive problem or solution to a product manager. To you, you'd be like, oh, sales team needs X, Y, and Z. Just so happens I was working on that for funsies on the weekend. That's a freebie for me. But a product manager would never even dare utter the words for fear of slowing down the backlog. And like, you could become that like outside, just Hail Mary from nowhere that no one was expecting. But like, as long as you're paying attention to those opportunities, you can, you could really deploy some of the very high value skills you have. And I mean, some of the best impact I've had in my previous life in other companies has been paying attention to the complaints, paying attention to the support people, and the almost flippant like comments from customers of just like crazy desires that, hey, I'd like to, read the minds of people, and it turns out there's an AI for that. So it's like they make these comments and they may think that this stuff is utter magic and impossible, but it just so happens I was looking into this stuff, and it is feasible, and is not just feasible, it's very doable. And I did it. And it was like one of the hardest features trying to sell AI, 15 years ago. It was one of the hardest things to sell, but one of the most well-received features I ever did, and it was only because I listened to exasperated customers. and to support people who are like, these customers are making these crazy demands. They want to see all kinds of data, and then they complain that they can't analyze it. What if I could do it for them? And I was able to build a little bit of a small boom in my business just from that.
Yeah, see, that's such a nice like ability to bring up in a company. And heck, not even a company, that's just like life too, right? Because you could be walking around, if you get used to that cadence of talking to other people and finding out what their problems are, then heck, that's like what freelancing is all about, right? Is solving other people's problems.
Yeah, just shooting the shit, talking about what's wrong or what's going on, what they need, and hey, I'm a creative person. I can come up with creative solutions. How about this?
Yeah. So let's see. I mean, but those are all the benefits. I guess like another thing that's like keeping me from going is that nascent fear of me not remembering the people that I talk to. I think like the biggest thing is because I always have this problem with remembering names. And
I struggle.
I can remember.
I apologize to my students whose names I've forgotten. I sincerely apologize. But it's a struggle. I think it's a struggle for a lot of people. It's not like, I think people, you kind of value that when you call someone the wrong name, it only matters if it's been like 4 times in a row and like really in bad circumstances. You don't want to be the, hey champ, all the time. And, you have no idea. But at the same time, like if you're not like, you're acting with good intentions. People know that. So as long as you have good humor about it, I don't think, now that you're making me self-conscious, now that I realize all the people's names this week I've forgotten. Oh man.
I was reading that, we have room in our memories for like 125 people?
I think that's a little optimistic.
It's optimistic, but then if we think about it...
We have 120 people in the basement.
Well, you do.
Yeah.
I have like around 100 people at work, but then I have my wife, I have my parents, I have her parents, I have my cousins and uncles and aunts and my niece.
Buffer overflow, dude.
So I have like all of those people are part of that 125 before I even start with my friends, and then like lesser friends and circle of friendship if we believe all that. And then eventually, now I get into work acquaintances, and I've got like 10 people left.
Use them well.
And I guess like it's the fear, because I haven't really put myself into a situation recently where I know I won't be able to remember all their names, and it's just like embarrassing to go like always just say like hey instead of like oh hey John, how's it going? Especially when they use my name.
Yeah, I know. It's really satisfying when you remember someone's name, and especially when someone knows your name. You're like, I didn't know they knew it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's weird. That like satisfaction that comes from it, and that rapport that you build using someone's name, just because you can gain so much out of it, I don't think you lose that much by screwing it up, unless it's someone you've genuinely known for a while. But if it's someone you've only ran into a few times, I don't think the negatives are as like outsized as the positives. I don't think you can still capitalize on that next time.
There's that. I've also just thought about trying to invent something. I had one idea to invent like a Google Glass almost type thing where I have like an OLED screen, and I would be able to like somehow like take pictures and get access to like the company like the 401 document or whatever it would be called, where I get all of their headshots, and I could put that in there with their names and what department they're in, and like just secretly go like dial through until like, oh, there's that person, there's 3 tidbits of information that I remember.
I mean, aside from looking like an asshole with like
just
glass in your face, like, oh, I'm trying to make eye contact, but I'm like, huh, wait, okay, you,
yeah,
like, hold on, my eyes are darting back and forth. Don't mind me. I'm paying attention. I swear.
Yeah. So I mean, like that. I guess like the remembering names, getting them right is a point of emotional distress for me.
It is.
I think like that's I don't know. I'm guessing I just have to just suck it up and get over it.
Yeah, I think if you laugh it off and just tell people, I suck with names. I'm lucky I remember my own. That usually works. At least as far as I can tell, I've gotten out of most situations like that. As I'm sure the comment someone's going to come out of the woodwork. Dan, you tore my heart apart 5 years ago, not knowing my name for 7 times in a row. It happens. It happens.
So that's like the biggest thing that's happened to me at work. In my personal time, you remember last time we had a mentorship meeting, we talked about the game that I was making. I hadn't done any code with it back then, and so now it's gotten to a point. And for those of you who don't know, I'm making a game. It's all on Twitch that I've done it. So it's been very slow coming because it's been like an hour at a time, and nowadays I'm streaming twice per week, so it's 2 hours per week working on it. And games generally take a year of 8 hours a day to complete. But it's a game built in Rust because I really want to learn the Rust language. And Dan had actually been one of the people suggesting that I use Rust, with Danny being the other one. And it's one of the like really interesting things because I hadn't really truly learned low level memory management and other things, and Rust has been my like super good reintroduction to that because I never really got that far into C. And so, what was it? There was something.
I mean, it's amazing fun. I recommend everyone get into Rust a little bit. It's fun and frustrating. And did I mention fun? It's fun, I swear.
There was something in one of the recent updates to Rust, and I just like can't in my mind figure out like why I would care about them, and like maybe you can help me understand it. Constant functions. So functions normally they take in some data. You type the data coming in if it's a language like Rust, and then you do something to it and you put it out, which means they have to run at runtime because the compiler doesn't know what data is coming in. But constant functions, according to Rust, are functions that run at compile time.
You mean like macro style?
So I don't think so because like macros still don't know what you're getting in. And so the examples that were given was something like a function that takes in like a number and adds 1 to it, or something like that. Could be a constant function because they know exactly what's going to happen, and therefore it's compiled into like the binary code or the assembly code.
Oh, so it's like an optimization where the compiler was able to determine that this happens to take always this argument, or in this architecture, this is the value of the path for whatever.
I think so, but
like inlining is kind of like in JavaScript, we have like inlining for, I guess, functions that are able to be unwrapped or like taken out of their function scope, and the body of the code is just put inline somewhere. I wonder if that's a sort of parallel.
Maybe. I guess like I don't fully understand it enough to be able to say yes or no. I'm trying to like even wrap my head around this idea of a function that doesn't run at runtime.
I mean, I guess if it knows by static values what it has, there's no need to keep reprocessing that. I mean, if something's idempotent and deterministic, let's look it up.
Yeah, let's look it up. I know I don't have my screen showing because I didn't set that up with OBS here. But I think this is, that's the pull request. Constant, is it? I don't know if it's constant functions or this is the new docs. Oh, that's the books. That's the old stuff. That's not really helpful. while I'm looking this up, I noticed that there's 4 people watching us now. If you have any questions or want us to chat about anything, standard mentorship meeting, but also we're opening it up to anybody who wants to ask or have any topics talked about. So I know it's either. I guess what I really want to do is I just want to go to the Rust Lang. Yeah, the Rust Lang. Let's just go to Rust Lang website. And then take a look at their probably blog or changelog here. The debug macro, I showed you that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was
awesome. Does it not go back too far?
Is that just that release?
This is just this last release. Oh man, it would be so much. It would be so much nice if they had all this stuff.
For an open source contribution, I think they might need could benefit from an index of changelogs.
Yeah. Well, that was something else. The documentation for so many everything is not good.
I mean, it's really, this is one of those things that I point out to a lot of students. What we're going through right now is the process of hunting through Google, finding the official resources, then going back and finding, oh, we couldn't find what we're looking for. Let's go back. Let's go back to Google, reconfigure our search terms.
Here it is.
The best thing to do when you ever do this is put it on a sticky, write a note that whatever breadcrumbs that you ran out of when you were trying to find your way and you have to go back to Google, this is a perfect opportunity to get some open source cred. Like this is, or experience points. You can, doing this will, like, all you're doing is connecting parts of resources that exist and making them link to what you needed at the time. Like, it's hard for maintainers to understand how Google is directing people to their resources. And we're in a unique position to identify. We just spotted something that's kind of could be improved. Not that it's broken, but it could certainly be improved.
You're talking about like the awesome lists on GitHub that people create.
Or, I mean, these docs could probably link to the previous and next changelog. I mean, it wouldn't be a major change, but it would probably help us make the content more discoverable.
Yeah,
because we
actually could see that.
We just discovered it, and it took a little bit of hunting. Yeah. So, Brooks, tell us what we're looking at.
Okay, so I'm looking at, it's called const functions. So constant functions. And it says, okay, there's several ways to define a function in Rust. A regular function with fn, an unsafe function with unsafe, an external function, which I've not used unsafe or external before. And then there's this new way, const function, and it looks like this. And it's basically, it just takes in a variable, and then it does something very statically to it, like +1. And it says that it's called like a regular function, but it can be used in any constant context that it's evaluated at compile time. And that just sort of, I can't wrap my head easily around like, but how does it evaluate at compile time? How does it know what it's taking in?
Well, because it's got a hard-coded value. I bet if that 5 there was a variable, so it's got const 6 : I32 equals foo 5, and foo adds, takes in I32 and adds 1 to it. So, but because it has 5 in there, I believe it can just unwrap that at compile time, like it can evaluate.
Yeah. Let me see if I could add in what we're looking at. Window capture, I think. Add that in. Do that. Yeah, that's it. There you go. Make that nice and big. Where is it? Transform. Full fix screen.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is what we're looking at. And so what you're saying is because of the entire because it's like this 6, the const 6.
Because it's got the 5 in there, like hard coded.
Oh,
because if that 5 was a variable, I bet it wouldn't be deterministic. You'd have to know where that variable nature is coming from.
So that brings me to why would I ever care about this feature?
It's kind of like a macro in like the same sense that it runs at compile time, but it's just got different ergonomics. Like I can see this being used for optimization. Like if you just have some code that needs to be applied, especially for different architectures. Like that'd be cool if certain things you don't want to optimize for. Or there's a SIMD, whatever that processor extension is. If there's that option, like it'd be cool if like, oh, this pathway is non-deterministic, but maybe this one is, but it's slower, or something like that. I can easily imagine this being useful for those kinds of like really complex cases, but you're really hiding the complexity and making it so it doesn't keep evaluating at runtime. But I'm sure there's Rust people out there who might know better.
Yeah, I guess like, so would that mean that there'd be like, okay, I want to compile this for, but I'm compiling for different targets.
Yeah.
So
I'm
like,
saying like that's because that's all you know at when you're running this at the start. But the things you do know or the things that change for you as a developer would probably be like architectures and targets, and that would be something I'd imagine this kind of a feature would be useful for.
okay, so if architecture is Windows, I want to add 10 to this for some weird reason. Okay. Yeah, I guess I've never run into a problem where I would need something or even care to have something like this.
Yeah, I mean, I fear it's been a long time since I've messed with any C++ projects, but I know from when I was messing with some C++ UI frameworks, there was a lot of code that was contextual based on the platform and the architecture, depending on what they were doing or what pathways were being followed. There was a lot of that meta stuff or that compile time stuff going on, and I'd imagine that stuff that's kind of where Rust might be going with that.
Okay.
But they do have really cool macro syntax, so really powerful. Love with the syntax.
The macros do seem super powerful. I haven't written any myself, but I've made extensive use of like other macros.
Yeah, thanks for teaching me about the debug one, or DBG.
Oh yeah, that was the brand new one. That if we go, that was the one that just came out.
Yeah, the 1.3.2.
Yeah.
There's the last one.
Yeah, there's something.
Some of that contextual into.
Yeah, if we go back. Oh no, that's still not the right one. Up to 1.3.2. We added the debug macro, which does look. I tried it in one thing, and it actually has different ownership rules, apparently, than print line.
How do you mean?
Like I had to get a clone of something or pass it in by reference as opposed to just handing it. Yeah.
Hand it off to the bar.
Yeah. So it does different things with it, but it prints like the line and other things. So it's really nice like that. This is another thing that I wasn't really sure about. malloc is removed by default, and I remember it's so syst. We chose to use JE. So I thought you had said that they were using the system malloc, but it looks like maybe they weren't using it, and now they are.
Maybe I jumped the gun on that. Yeah, I thought they were using the system line. Interesting.
Or is this malloc was always the default? Is a bit so Windows has been using a system allocator for a very long time, whereas and would there be a reason? So I haven't been using too many threads before, but I've considered it in the past, and I've done some. I wrote one web server, and I wrote a web server that also does a web socket server and an IRC server, and sort of like is communicating back and forth between those. And I was using threads to sort of run the socket server and the IRC client at the same time and sending messages back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something like would I want to continue to use the JE malloc?
I mean, what implications does it change if you're? Do you have to opt into it now, or they actually?
Yeah, it looks like if you like to continue using JE malloc, you have to use the crate that pulls it in.
I'd assume there'd be no impact because I doubt the Rust people would put up with any instability that would come from a force change like that. It seems that they've been having ongoing issues with JE.
Let's see. JMalloc usually has great performance. That's not always the case. A host of other issues in the past. And then also systems language not using the default system allocator. So
It's interesting. I'll have to look into it.
and that's like what recently like occurred in Rustland.
I haven't played in it since. This must be pretty recent.
Oh yeah. This was very, very recent. This is January 17th. I did download it and use it, and like the debug thing is nice. Once I figured out the ownership part about it, I was able to use it. I think it's still changing a lot. It's not changing as much as it was because I remember you were saying that when you first started using Rust, you kind of rage quit it because you they changed like
the integers.
they changed integer types and names.
Yeah, they went from like int32 to i32 or something like that, and it just felt like every week there was some earth-shattering change underfoot, and I love new languages, but I was not really.
It's not that new language.
Well, this is years ago.
I mean, you didn't like that new language.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's just, I wish I hadn't got so bitter about that because it really is an amazing language. It's amazing how functional it is and how low level it is at the same time. It really is grown up.
So I think I'm going to be correct on this, but obviously correct me if I'm wrong. But Dan started with Rust back when Rust had a normal garbage collector that ran in the thread. Or was that Danny?
I think that might have been Danny. Yeah. That was a minute ago.
That was. I think that was before Mozilla fully took over the project, and it was just somebody who was working at Mozilla, and their like side project.
Yeah, there's some Rust fans in Denver here. It's a good community. There's a Mozilla office here. There's a lot of activity around the language.
Although I asked Mozilla Chuck, who, if you're not in Denver, that name won't mean anything to you. But he's one of the local Mozilla representatives that's very, very, very active in our local Slack channels, and we can see him in the community. He works here in Denver, and he told me that there's nobody that's actively working on Rust at Mozilla in Colorado.
Where's the Rust people at?
I can't go and hang out with them and try to get some knowledge.
No, well, come on, Mozilla, what's up?
But we do have some like really big companies that are here working on it, and I'm trying to think and work up the courage to determine what talk I would like to give on Rust, because I don't really know what because they're all
at the Node meetup.
Oh well, I could do it at the Node meetup.
Like, is there a WASM thing you could bust out and like put it under the guise of this is really for JavaScript people?
Okay, so that's another question because I have a question in the chat window. Oh no, my stream chat is not loading correctly then because I've been looking at chat. Oh, thank you, wave my hand wildly.
I think we're.
Oh, it's behind the whiteboard.
Yeah.
Right. Hold on. Sorry about that, everybody. I thought that my chat was working correctly. Let me try to reset that.
Server access, so tomorrow.
Don't do that. Don't play automatically. Go to my dashboard. Are you? All right, because chat doesn't sort of like keep the old stuff and reload that. If you asked a question, could you please re-ask any of the questions in chat, and then we'll answer them.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Also, you're no longer in.
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah.
Nothing like some lighting issues and a technical issue.
Yeah. All right. So Juan.
Oh no.
No. It's not that no one from Mozilla is working on Rust. It's no one from Mozilla in Colorado.
We are literally looking at a Mozilla office right now. There.
Kraken, you have a question about JavaScript. If you write a JavaScript code using something like P5.js and you give that to someone who doesn't have that on their PC, does that library work on that HTML? The answer is, well...
That's an interesting one because P5 isn't generally used with NPM, which would kind of normalize the usage. I often see P5 used with a CDN.
I guess I want to say yes, but there's going to be some caveats here. And then fill in whatever I get wrong. If you deliver this through a website and you just say, go to my website and play the game, it's going to work just fine because if they're able to download the code for like your JavaScript, they're also going to download P5.js, and then everything is going to work. But if you put like your code on a thumb drive and hand that to them and they have no internet working and you in your HTML file put in like a link to P5.js off in the cloud, then no, it won't work because it needs to download that.
Or if it links to yourself locally on localhost and they don't set up a local server, or there's a lot of follow-up questions.
Right. So my suggestion, Kraken, is deploy it using something like Now or Firebase or Heroku, and then if it's on the internet and you're going to like an actual domain, then it should work.
Mm-hmm.
And then
if you're able to test it at the site you've released or deployed live, it should be fine.
Right. Now some people might want to use what's the big local install native tool for building web apps for computers. Something? Electron. Like you could build an P5 app with Electron, and in that case, you'd want to download like P5 into the Electron like bundler, and then you can build it into like a single install file, and then just hand that to your friends, and they would be able to play it, and it would be fine then.
So if it can't be deployed, that's what I'd do. Just package it up into a Electron app or some sort of web view, and then you can actually distribute the files as a download.
Yeah. Juan, you asked why. You also asked how many people are dedicated full-time to Rust from Mozilla. Is it possible to know? I don't have that information. Also, I would walk over there, but literally the office is dark.
Yeah.
As you saw, the office is dark and there's nobody there right now because they all leave at normal times.
Yeah.
That would be something that we could ask Mozilla Chuck or just the Mozilla team. There's been a little bit of a shakeup in the Rust world recently because 3 people left Mozilla. I think 2 of them were engineers, and 1 of them was the documentation writer. So the person who wrote the Rust book, the one I read on stream, he left Mozilla, and he's looking for something else in Silicon Valley. And then there's 2 other people who also left, and I can't remember any of their names right now, which is kind of sad.
But I believe you can Google it.
They all wrote blog posts, by the way, about why they left. From what I can tell, the person who wrote the documentation had some cultural differences with Mozilla, and that was not the best terms of leaving. But the other two were just needed to do something else, and they all plan on continuing work with Rust, just not from Mozilla.
And I think Mozilla is still committed to using Rust in their quantum engine and to power their browser going forward.
Yeah.
So I certainly expect them to have a very healthy number of developers.
I kind of hope that they use Rust to build an Electron competitor.
Absolutely.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Let's see. Kraken, you said that your thing cannot be deployed.
That's what I was saying, like the Electron would be.
Yeah, Electron, or just bundle all the files together into a single folder. Just make sure that P5 is downloaded there, and it's like asking for // and then have them double click the index to HTML.
And they have like security thing.
There may be problems with that, with like a cores issue. Yeah.
I think Electron just be like hard enough, but it'd be repeatable and it'd work on other platforms.
I can't remember. Kraken, do you also watch CJ at the Coding Garden? Because he's done an entire video on Electron and building an Electron app. Is the const function how randomized game content is created when you start the game? It sets the variable based on time.
So though progressively generated content is, I believe what you're talking about, but it's generated like in real time, and there's a whole series of algorithms that are either like noise generators or randomization matrices matrices. They're used to do a lot of those, like level generation, even influencing the AI for opponents. There's a lot of that stuff is done by real time, and it's a very, very interesting area of computer science. I think Coding Train has a whole series on those.
But can that be done as a constant function?
I don't know if that makes like maybe the type of algorithm you could pre-allocate, but I don't know how to determine. I mean, it's inherently non-deterministic. You're trying to simulate randomization.
Oh, and you know what? I just realized this, Juan. The constant function is run at compile time. So it can't be random because it would be run once at compile, and then you deploy the app out, and you're running the deployed code, so it would still be the same number every single time.
Yeah, and the progressively generated stuff is inherently in the moment and it's fed by random data generators. There's a lot of other qualifiers in there, but it'd be interesting to know like what kind of content-wise stuff you could generate at compile time. That would be an optimization to avoid computation at runtime.
Mm. So
I mean, maybe you could pre-compute like different levels or something. Maybe it could be a pre-step. I don't know.
Randomly choose one of these random numbers from a vector. Like in Zelda 1, if you start the location of the enemies for the whole game, if you start the location of the enemies for the whole game is set.
Right.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, isn't that kind of like how all of the speedrunners like end up? They say they're manipulating the random number generators because they're doing something crazy in the code to save processing time. Instead of like true random every single time, they're like saying like, okay, we're gonna seed it based upon the pixel point where the player comes into the screen, and just because that's easier to do?
Yeah, they may be using like a bad seed value for their random function, which you could fake out, and then if you know the exact time or the exact way to restart the game, you may know, it's pulling from the seconds value on the machine, and so there's only 60 different random values. So, oftentimes those are the kinds of mistakes game makers will do when they're trying to seed something random. It just won't be, it'll feel random to humans if it goes with like
1,000 milliseconds, like it's hard for me to remember 10 things. So 1,000 things would seem really random to me. And 60, maybe even in testing, would slip through. But that's the kind of flaw that I think you're talking about.
So that just reminds me of like one of the best sort of like hacks that speedrunners have done. And I think, what is it, the Super Mario Brothers, or one of those early games, the speed running record is like 6 seconds or something crazy like that, because you can actually, by doing certain items, affect memory.
So where you like glitch and tear like straight through the level.
Yeah, you straight through level to the final screen and then game over.
Yeah.
And would do programming languages like Rust, is that going to make sure that can never happen?
No. I mean, I wish, but no. You can always do dangerous, stupid things as a developer. The power rests with you.
If I don't do unsafe, and if I follow Rust best practices.
Well, it's more about how are you getting your random data? Are you timing it? Like things like, so there's cryptographically secure random data available on certain Unix systems and modern processors. And depending on the environment, depending on the OS and a bunch of other factors, though the quality of that random, quote, random value could degrade quite a bit. But modern processors, modern computers are able to be very random or get very random bytes that are hard to repeat. Yes, one's mentioning that there's true random is more expensive, cheap random is cheap. Yeah, totally. It's you have different sources of random data on a modern computer, and you can pick whichever one you want, and the better ones are generally slower. You'll get more data, or you can get more data. You can get a stream of bytes even, and it's going to be hard to see like very long repeating sequences. But like it's up to you as the developer to choose how to use that correctly. You don't want to have like the craziest cryptographic security level thing when you're just trying to like seed like random like characters for a map that only has like maybe 160 tiles on it. I mean, how much random, like, you've got to match the level of possible outputs with the level of inputs. And if your inputs could be varied by 500 billion, you're probably going overkill. Probably bring a sledgehammer to a tiny little grid game. So you kind of have to appreciate the situation you're in.
Always choose 7, that's what I'm hearing.
42. It's the
Chantilly, welcome to the stream. You ask, if you have lots of variables to generate, wouldn't it be easier to be more true to randomness?
Well, there isn't. So what do you mean by more true?
Okay, so there's different algorithms, right? There's different algorithms that like scientifically have been proven to be more random than others.
I mean, so early random number generators were actually just a list of numbers that were kind of baked into the computer, and when you gave it a seed value, it was just offsetting the list.
Oh, so like start at 0 and then seed to like 4,000.
Yeah, so like these weren't. So really, your seed value is critical there to at least even achieve the perception of randomness.
Is that the history of seed values?
That's a short version, yeah.
Okay, so like that reminds me of Daniel Schiffman's reading of the random number books, because he like every once in a while
Right.
he has that book that's like
just
hundreds of pages
yeah.
long with just random numbers in it.
That's literally how computers how their randomness was achieved, because they aren't random. They're completely deterministic predictable machines. You give them the instructions, give them certain inputs, they will do the same thing. So faking randomness has been a lifelong struggle for computers.
True random would not allow to guess the results based upon knowing the inputs.
True, and it's really a matter of, look, there's always going to be someone who's lucky, so you've kind of got to realize, like, at some point, it's possible, given enough time, you may just get it right. So somewhere on that, like, spectrum of, like, crazy amounts of, crazy length of numbers, opposite the whole, well, if you're giving me random numbers, but the possibility of you guessing the right one, if that's plausible, given enough time, These are kinds of constraints or extremities that some developers often don't think about. Don't trust that something's ever going to be truly random, but also understand your problem space, because if you know the scope, you know the level of how random you need things to be before users catch on or can glitch the system. If you only have 160 tiles on the map, I don't care how random it is. I have a 1 in 160 chance of being right where, like, I'm in a land or where the treasure is or whatever. No amount of randomness in the world is going to change that constraint. Like, that's your problem domain size is going to be the other limiting factor. So, really, you've got to have a deep appreciation for both sides of that equation.
That's interesting. Let's change our topics again. And Kraken asks or states, you work as a app dev level 1. Seems like I daily go from hero to zero. Does this ever stop? You're
not alone.
You're definitely not alone. The last 2 tickets that I've worked on, I have overthought it. Overthought the problem to the point where I spent a day working on like how to like implement this thing, following like high security potential like ways and engineering it. And then the lead developer is like, hey, let's talk about our problem. Like you could just do like a 3-line thing right here. And they're like, well, what if they get to like this other state? And it's like, our users will never get to that state. Like they're not going to do that. That's an edge case that our support team will just handle that really easily, and it's cheaper for us to work on that. And like, as soon as I did that, I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. That like, I don't want to spend all this time and therefore the company's money to implement and security features that are never going to be used.
Totally, and like there's a weird sort of, as a developer, you'll go through your career learning what the business values, and like you don't seem to like take into account like, oh, the support team is here, or they're contractually they need to be on call. We have an SLA where people will get an answer within 30 minutes or a day or whatever it is, and like if that's part of your contract, part of what they're obligated to, it's like that's a ready workforce that is there to solve technical problems. And if it's going to be something that's going to put more strain on the dev team, potentially cause bugs or other problems that maybe the support team can't even fix, like developers sometimes lose sight of the scope of what's possible when you're just looking at code all day. So I'm glad you've been wandering around the office, meeting the peeps.
I guess so to caveat to that is it's important not to like just lean on those external resources for all things. But
the support team will take care of it.
It's a ROI. It's a return on investment calculation, right? It's one of these things where 1% of our customers may run into this problem, and
is it worth wasting a whole sprint on? Is it worth
I can get 2 tickets done and add 2 features for our users by increasing the load of our support team by like a tiny amount, and not make everybody else unhappy. So like that's the trade-off there. Also, I don't recommend ever making that trade-off alone. That's a team level decision. That's also, if you can get support to like buy off on that, that will go so much further with any relationship things. If they say like, oh yeah, totally let us handle all of those tickets, in fact, we're going to write documentation up and they won't even call us. Like it'll be an auto response.
Yeah, but I can't tell you how many former students and former mentees have shared that experience of just like some days they're the hero, they solved everything, and the next day they're being written about anonymously in the blog as a junior we didn't support and we shouldn't have let them have access to production database to delete, and maybe we should have backups too. Separate thing.
That Reddit post gets around. It's been a year.
Yeah, we're referring to a legendary Reddit post.
There's something else, Kraken, that I was just thinking about in Denver Devs, which is the Slack here in Denver that all of us, well, not all of us, but a huge number of developers here are a part of. Kyle Coberly, who's a sort of like Denver famous person here, he
More than Denver famous. He'd like to hear that.
he created a channel in this Slack with 6,000 plus people called Topic Vulnerability. And the entire point is all of us can get together and just talk about how we screwed up in some way. Not to sort of like get internet points of like, oh, no, you're really okay, you're perfectly fine. It's more of ways for us to say, yeah, I totally screwed up and the world isn't over and everything is still fine. And that's just how it is. And I think that's another thing. That's another reason to get back to like the entire point of this talking is mentorship things is we need to be able to admit where we're screwing up so that we can get better and then do better.
Absolutely. Absolutely critical. And that dovetails back to what we started talking on. Having some goals and knowing what you want out of it, and then when things don't go wrong, being able to figure out or things don't go right or according to plan. You need to be able to talk about it, figure out why, and then you'll move through it faster. But if you don't or you ignore it, it tends to not improve. But such is life.
Yeah. It's been about an hour since we started, and I'm going to try to limit these so that it won't be like too energy draining, and then we can do these as a regular cadence.
Yeah.
So my plan is to run these every week on Thursdays after work. Now, obviously, it won't be every single week because there's some weeks that we'll have meetups. For example, the Node.js meetup that I run is every third Thursday, so I won't. Every third Thursday of the month. I won't obviously be able to meet up for that because I'll be doing that. And then there's some other meetups that we might choose to go to. Like I think Denver Script is next week.
Or we'll have to bump Thursday. It seems like a busy day. We might have to move it to a weekend or something. I don't know. What do you think?
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And but I want to do it once per week, but it may not always be every week. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
You also do Node. We do the nodes.
Yeah.
A lot of Node.
Well, there's nodes in every language. But yes, we both do Node.js.
Yeah, it's my favorite, and your company uses it, right?
I use Node.js on the back end all the time.
Yeah, Node for life. I mean, I know we talked a lot about Rust. I love other languages, but Node's got a special place in my heart.
Absolutely. So with that, I'm going to we're gonna shut the stream down. I'm going to archive this over to YouTube. I'm going to create a playlist for mentorship over there, and I may or may not also meet with other mentors too, because it's important to have more than just one.
Yeah, definitely don't just have me. Go.
Yeah, and as we said at the beginning, and I'll put this on Twitter too. If you have any questions that you think of during the middle of the week that you want us to talk about, please tweet them out at me or Dan, or just randomly. I don't know how to find them then. You can find, I believe down below I have a link to my Twitter account, and you can follow me on there.
Mine is at JUSTSML, just
here.
SML.
Let me
Throw that in the message.
Twitter.com/JUSTSML. Like that?
Yep.
All right. So there's that one, and I just might as well put in mine too. com/Brooks_Patton. All right, so those are our Twitters. Please feel free to send us messages. With that, let's go ahead and shut her down. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping by and asking questions, and have a great night.